What's up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite subjects, but unfortunately we're not going to talk about the super awesome parts of it. We're going to talk about the leftists and how they don't understand anything, even about themselves. Um, Namely, they don't understand critiques that we're making about them, which is just ironic. So if you're into like pop culture or whatever, you probably heard about Amazon's Rings of Power, which is just a travesty of the greatest magnitude. Um, when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, great! Another." When I saw the first trailer, I was like, "Great! Another like cliche, you know, copy paste fantasy." And then I realized it was supposed to be Lord of the Rings. I was like, "What in the world? This ain't Lord of the Rings. It looks nothing like Lord of the Rings." Um, but so it's a mess. And some of that could be just the fact that Amazon doesn't have the rights to everything in the trilogy and the Hobbit, which is probably a good thing. But they've decided to condense the Silmarillion into um, a series, and so like you have a span of like thousands of years that they've condensed into like a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then they just made up a whole bunch of other stuff that's just not in the book. Now I don't know if everybody's read the Silmarillion. I've read it a few times. It's an excellent book. It's hard. I recommend it if you're dedicated to Lord of the Rings, but you also might want to have a genealogy of Feanor handy. You can find Google images on it, so it's not hard to get a hold of. But um, this week there's been, because of the backlash against the show, there's been all this uproar. You have Amazon and Rotten Tomatoes and all these places covering up scores and calling everybody that hates the show all the ists and isms and all the normal stuff the left does when they make a product that nobody wants to buy or consume. And but really, what really got me is um, there's people on there on Twitter. That's what I mean by there. There's people on Twitter who are posting pictures of Eowyn killing the Witch King in the Return of the King, and saying that if this were released today, it would have been considered woke. And I'm like, these people have no understanding about what we mean by woke. They have no understanding about the criticisms against what they believe and what they're doing. And some irony is that I think one of the persons that I saw who was posting it had like a picture of She-Hulk, another failed uh, show that's currently going on right now. But that's beside the point. So let's dive into it. I want to talk about two different things. So the first, let's talk about, and I guess they're intertwined. Let's talk about in defense of the Return of the King and why it's not woke, and we're also going to talk about what we mean by when we say woke, because it's a term that's been thrown around a lot, but maybe we can bring some clarity to the discussion, so we can be like, oh, that's woke. I've heard kind of like the old saying like, I can't exactly define what is pornography, but I know it when I see it. And so a lot of people are like that with woke. Like, it's hard to define, but I know it when I see it. Like, it's real easy to see. But let's get a little closer to that, because it is like an ambiguous term, that namely that it's an umbrella term for like a movement. So it's a little harder to pin down. But let's take Lord of the Rings and why Eowyn killing the Witch King is not woke. And part of that one of the reasons that we know it's not is because it was written like decades ago. It was written so long ago before the woke movement even happened. So that's one reason. This happened, and some people are like, "Oh, this is brand new." Like Tolkien was going against the grain of what was normal to have a woman join the war and go there. And I'm like, I don't know about I'd say that. There's been legends and stories of women who joined the military and fought for forever. You've got Mulan, which is like an ancient, legend. You have Joan of Arc. She's pretty, famous for going out and fighting and what is that, France. You have even in the Bible, you've got some women who do heroic things. Like in Judges, you have Deborah, who is one of the judges because the man that should have been the judge doesn't want to stand up and do what is right, so she does it for him. And you have, tons of cases of women who've stepped into the role that men are supposed to do, at least in the Bible, because the men are not doing it. And then even just in normal history, you have women who have, fought because they had to, or they felt it was right. So it's not like, so that in and of itself is not woke. And even in the time of Tolkien, because it was in the early 1900s. But you know what else was? Wonder Woman. That was in the early 1900s. You have all like early comic books were making female characters who were out there fighting. Now these people have supernatural powers, so it's easy, a little easier to suspend disbelief. But no. So having a woman being heroic is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's great to have heroic women, sometimes who are forced to do things that they don't want to do. Or, in Eowyn's case, she wants to be a great princess. She's not happy just being left to the side while everybody else goes and gets honor, because in her culture, like, honor is fought in battle and earned, and she wants to be she doesn't want to just be like a set piece. She wants to make a name for herself, and Tolkien does that, and she actually, and that's part of her drive toward Aragorn, is Aragorn is the king. Like, this is the heir of Gondor, and so she's attracted to that power that he has, and so she in the end, it's similar. She has a similar vein to Galadriel. Galadriel has this desire to rule Middle Earth, or be extremely powerful in Middle Earth, and she's offered the One Ring in the Fellowship of the Ring. And this is her chance to take up the thing that has caused her to be disfellowshipped from the mainland, the homeland of the elves, and because of her greed for power, the lust for power. And so Galadriel has this great moment in the Fellowship where she refuses the power, refuses to make a name for herself, and chooses to diminish and head to the homeland. She has finally passed the test that she's failed so many times in the past. Now she is choosing to do the right thing, and so Eowyn goes, breaks the rules. She helps kill the Witch King with Merry, and she ends up choosing not to pursue that lust for power with Aragorn. Of course, he's also, with Arwen, but she meets Faramir. And so, like, in The Return of the King, you have this long discussion that I think is just beautiful. They really wrecked Faramir in the movie. one of my least favorite parts of Return of the King is what they've done to Faramir. But in the book, he has to win her over. She has to give up on this dream of power, this lust for the power that Aragorn has, and she chooses to become just a normal lady. She falls in love with Faramir, and they go off, and because Faramir is choosing not to go down the path of his brother, and she is choosing to not go down the path that she's been tempted to, and so they come together and they make a wonderful couple. It's great. That love story in that is really really something. So, and so yeah, that there's nothing like woke about that. So also, there's a small matter with like some people I've seen like will say like, oh well, Mary actually stabbed him first, and it was the blade that Mary had, which was what is it, made by the Numenorians or somebody from the Silmarillion. I don't remember off the top of my head, but his blade was specially designed to kill the ring wraiths, and so he just happened to have it because he found it back in the Fellowship when they were in the before they met, or around that time when they met Tom Bombadil. I don't know why I'm blanking on the bogs or whatever it was called. They get captured by this creature, and Tom Bombadil comes and saves them and gives them little daggers, and those are the daggers that Merry and Pippin end up with through the rest of the movie, or rest of the story. And those were specially designed for killing ring wraiths. Of course, all 9 of them were still around, so it is what it is. But anyway, so some people are saying like, oh well, Merry stabbed him first, and that's what weakened him enough to be stabbed by a sword. And that is the general consensus of what happened. Like, Tolkien doesn't explicitly say that, but as far as I remember, I don't think he explicitly says what kills the ring wraith. But he does have the line that's where Eowyn says, "I am no man," and stabs him. So you have a hobbit and a woman who kill him, and so this prophecy is fulfilled in such a weird way because the ring wraith, the Witch King, was so afraid of elves because they weren't men or dwarves. But he wasn't afraid of men at all because he would not be killed by a man, was the prophecy or whatever. The legend that he could not be killed by a man. But it was a woman and a hobbit that killed him. So, but I don't feel like that really disproves the idea of the wokeness. It's a technicality. So it is true that Mary weakened him enough for her to kill him. But I don't know that really changes anything. So to really prove, we had to discuss like what is woke. And so woke is not just having heroic females. That's fine. What is woke is when they when they take an established universe, as an example, take an established universe and force all of their leftist cult philosophy into that as a foreign philosophy. So when you take Thor, who's like a man's man, and he falls and becomes honorable. He has to fight to become honorable. When you replace him with a lady, just cause. That's wokeism right there. When you have She-Hulk is a great character. She's a good like B or C character in the comics, but when you make her like insufferable and spouting all of the religious dogma of the leftist cult, like how oppressed women are and how awful it is to be a woman and all these things, that's woke. It's not woke to have like a strong female hero. It is woke to have a strong female hero who is a Mary Sue, who doesn't have to work hard for anything, who gets everything handed to her just because she's a woman. It is woke for her to be like complaining about everything that feminists complain about. That's woke, not the other. So Eowyn, she's fine. Galadriel in the new movie or the new series, that's crossing the line. When you needlessly change something, like when you when you race swap characters that have always been this way, or gender swap characters, like James Bond has, like they were talking about making him into a lady. That's woke. When you take Doctor Who and you swap him into a girl, like that's woke. Like perhaps there's a way to do it. Perhaps like with Doctor Who because of the character as a female, but I don't trust the the woke leftists to not insert their religious ideas into Doctor Who. So it's basically woke. So anytime you take this cult of leftists and they insert their philosophy into a foreign, oftentimes pre-established canon, that's what woke is. So we look at Lord of the Rings, we have all of these radical changes to the Lord of the Rings, and that's woke. Eowyn's not woke because that's how Tolkien wrote her. Okay? Now there are like new franchises that do like insert all of this dogma into their things, and those are also woke. So it's not just like inserting it into foreign things. It's like, but you can also create the content as well and make that super woke by inserting all of this religious dogma of the left, of leftism. Their cult has specific philosophies and ideas, and it's all woke. So we see this in like Big Eva and the church. Like they're like, oh, we're not woke. We have more in common than we have not, and yet they're spouting all the things that the leftist cult spouses. And I'm like, you realize you're that's what we mean by woke. You're basically preaching all of these extra dogmas of the leftist cult instead of the dogmas of the Christian worldview. I know our generation hates the word dogma, but which is why I'm using it for the leftist cult, because they have dogma, but it just means like the standards, the beliefs, the foundational things. That's all dogma really is. We have like this negative connotation of it, but so no, Eowyn is not woke. In fact, we see like a redemption for her where she chooses to deny the lust that she has for power and chooses to be okay as a stewardess wife, a steward's wife. There we go. I'll get the grammar right eventually. So yeah, Lord of the Rings is pretty amazing. Silmarillion is excellent. I have zero interest in watching Rings of Power. It does not look like Lord of the Rings at all. So as far as I'm concerned, it isn't Lord of the Rings. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Hope that was helpful. If there was anything I missed about like wokeness and all that, it's amazing to me that we've had like this discussion for so long, and the left still has no idea why we disagree with them. It's crazy. Like they don't even really understand what they believe, and so it's hard for them to understand what other people believe, and it's crazy. So let me know what you think. If you're new here, go ahead and like and subscribe. I just talk about everything, politics and theology. Well, not everything, but I talk a lot about politics and theology. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.